Turn to the issue of immigration. Ms. Goodlander, the number of immigrants in the U.S. illegally is estimated to be more than 11 million. When asked about immigration, you said the system is outdated, overburdened, and underfunded, and you want to find solutions to upgrading immigration laws. But what about all of the undocumented people who are already here? Do you support a significant deportation effort while working to change immigration laws?
Look, this is an issue that I've dedicated a lot of my life to. I was really proud to work for Senator John McCain 11 years ago when he led a bipartisan effort together with Senator Chuck Schumer to take a hard look at our immigration laws and at our border security and to update those laws and ensure that we're properly funding the system. We are a nation of immigrants, and I'm living proof of that. My family has been able to live the American dream because when my great-grandfather came here more than 100 years ago to Nashua, we had immigration laws on the books that allowed us to have the country that lives under the rule of law as we all want to see happen. So what I'd say about this, Adam, is we have right now, because in part of the work that we did 11 years ago to come up with a bipartisan solution to updating our immigration laws and our border security, we have a bipartisan bill that President Biden was eager to sign into law. It's a bill that was endorsed by our Border Patrol because it would have properly funded Border Patrol agents. It's a bill that was endorsed by the Chamber of Commerce. And it's in part, I think, because it would properly fund our asylum system and our immigration courts, which I saw firsthand at the Justice Department have been chronically underfunded.
To the question, do you need to see deportations, though, as part of this deal?
Adam, I believe that we should advance the bipartisan bill that the president wants to sign into law and that my opponent has opposed. And for one reason she's opposed it. It's because Donald Trump decided it was in his personal interest to stand in between the American people and the immigration reform that we all deserve.
Ms. Tong-Williams, 30 seconds, then we have an immigration question for you.
Maggie is trained very well to not answer questions directly and repeat her party's talking points and not offer solutions to the reality. This is a big issue that the grand legislators are concerned with. Ever since Biden became president, he's the one who uses pen, reversed the previous President Trump's border policies, and enabled 11 million illegals in this country with taxpayers' incentives and funding for factoring cities and cost crime range. You should be responsible. You should not even run for Congress because you are part of that regime who caused this problem. Now you offer bigger government solution, more money. You don't need more money. You need to use his pen to reverse
30 seconds,
his executive orders.
30 seconds.
Again, my opponent is focused on me. I am focused on the voters and on actual solutions that I believe Congress can and must advance. And one of those solutions, Adam, is the bipartisan, comprehensive immigration reform and border security bill that would allow us to make the critically needed updates to our system that would allow us to not have to even entertain hypotheticals about these dramatic proposals that have been put on the table by politicians who want to sow chaos and not solve problems.
Ms. Tong-Williams, let's get a question to you on immigration that you should answer here. You said that border security is a top issue. You just said that now, and you support efforts to make sure that people coming to the U.S. are doing so legally. The top priority, of course, of an incoming Trump administration will be mass deportations. He's said that repeatedly. Now, you're an advocate for human liberty. If this policy gets implemented on an expedited basis, are you okay with federal agents or National Guard's troops being deployed domestically, going door to door in certain neighborhoods to round up undocumented immigrants?
Well, I'm a legal immigrant. I came here right away. It took me 6.5 years to become citizen. My brother waited in China for 13 years to come here, and he could be here earlier if we had a streamlined process. It is a slap in the face to all the legal immigrants who are still waiting in line all over the world with American sponsors. And some of them have been waiting for over 10 years. What kind of message do we want to send to the world? If you follow the law, we're going to punish you. And if you come here illegally, we can give you quick pass to citizenship. I support deport all the illegal aliens who committed crime immediately. If we take over the White House and the U.S. Congress, and for the people who come here have not committed crime, and it's up to the red state. Red state can say, let's deport them from red state first. Then for the people who really want to become American citizens and got adopted by American citizens as sponsors, then I'm open to talk about that human way. If you take a welfare away, some people would self-deport. You'll be peacefully self-deport with the transportation help.
Ms. Tong-Williams, thank you.